Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपीकांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिये। बोलो श्री राधे गोलोकानंद भगवान की जय
जय।
हरे कृष्णा
भैया, Hare Krishna everyone.
Hare Krishna everyone.
कृष्णा सो कल हम लोगों ने हरे कृष्णा करूं कल we completed अध्याय 5th of canto 3. so आज हम लोग अध्याय 6 से चालू रखेंगे. so as we know there are 12 cantos in Srimad Bhagavatam and we are on canto 3. so we have completed 1 and 2. And how many shloks are there total? Do you remember?
18,000, right?
Yes, 18,000 shloks total and 332 chapters. Adhyay. And of course, as we can see, 12 canto. So we are on canto 3. As we know, this is started with Vidur Mahatma, starting on pilgrimage, and then how they all remember Lord Krishna's pastimes. Then how Mahatma Vidur approaches Maitreya Muni at Ganga river. And then Vidur ji asks all these questions to Maitreya Muni. And Maitreya Muni is answering all the questions, right? And initially he informed how all those 5 elements get generated, how the controlling deities take place, and then how controlling deities once appeared, then they are praying to Supreme Lord to make sure they can do the work they are here for. So we'll be reading chapter 6, which is creation of the universal form. So let's start with the text 1 of universal form. Rasiksha Prabhuji.
ऋषिर्वाच इति तासां स्वशक्तीनां सतीनां समेत्य सः प्रसुप्तलोकतन्त्राणां निशम्य गतिम् ईश्वरः. The Rishi Maitreya said, the Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of his potencies such as the Mahatattva.
Right. So this is Rishi Ruvaj. And which Rishi are we talking about here?
Maitreya Muni.
Maitreya Muni. So Maitreya Muni is telling this to
Vidurji.
Vidurji, Mahatma Vidur. So what he's saying is, and from whom did he hear about the suspension of the progressive creative functions?
Lord Krishna himself.
And all the devatas, right, who are praying to Lord Shri Krishna. I just read this, Soham.
There is nothing wanting in the creation of the Lord. All the potencies are there in a dormant state, but unless they are combined by the will of the Lord. Nothing can progress the suspended progressive work of creation can be only revived by the direction of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah. Everything is depending on Supreme Lord. Anilji?
Yeah. काल संज्ञाम तदा देवीं बिभ्रक्ष्यति मुरुक्रमः त्रयोविंशतिति तत्त्वानां गणं युगपदा विशत्. The Supreme Powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into the 23 elements with the goddess Kali, his external energy, who alone amalgamates all the different elements. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. So very significant, yeah. What Rishi Maitreya Muni is telling to Mahatma Vidur is, after all the Devata's prayers, the Supreme Powerful Lord simultaneously entered into the 23 elements. Says here, Trayo Vishanti. Trayo Vishanti is 23. Okay. And Tatvanam. So Trayo Vishanti Tatvanam, 23 elements with goddess Kali. Like we know Devi Shakti, right? We know this whole nature is Devi Shakti. Yeah. And it says Kal Sangyam Tada Devim. And that's his external energy, right? We know this whole universe is produced through his external energy. Yeah. And of course, so and then simultaneously entered into Trayo Vishanti Tatvanam. And so I'm read this again, please.
So I'm just going to use the bathroom. He'll be back.
Okay, Shiva.
The ingredients of matter are counted as 23. The total material energy falls ego, sound, touch, form, taste, smell, earth, water, fire, air, sky, eye, ear, nose, tongue, skin, hand, leg, evacuating organ, genitals, speech, and mind. All are combined together by the influence of time and are again dissolved in the course of time. Therefore, there is energy. Therefore, there's the energy of the Lord and acts in our own way of the direction of the Lord. This energy is called Kali.
Kali, huh? Devi Shakti. So 23 elements are described. Yeah. I mean, we are familiar with all these 23 elements, of course. Yeah. And in fact, it says in Brahma Samhita also, says, Eko Piyashu Rachiyanta Jagadanda Kotim Ye Chaktir Asti Jagadand Chaya Yada Nantah Anandatarastha Parmanu Andantarastha Parmanu Chayantarastham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamham Bhajami. This shlok we read, yeah, Brahma Samhita 5.35, if you remember. So we read, and what does that mean? Let's, Soham, if you are back, if you can read.
I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is the original personality of Godhead. By his partial plenary expansion, Mahavishnu, he entered into nature and then into each and every universe, as Gobodhaskya Vishnu said, and then as Krishna Vishnu into all the elements, including every atom of matter. Such manifestations of cosmic creation are innumerable, both in the universes and in the individual atoms. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So this is the Lord Brahmaji's prayers to Lord Govinda, right? As we read in Brahma Samhita. We went through that. Yeah. And if you remember, we saw Karno Dakshai Vishnu, which is the Mahavishnu. That's the plenary expansion of Lord Sri Krishna. And then we saw how from Mahavishnu he enters into each universe as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Yeah. So we saw that Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And then we read how from Garbhodakshai Vishnu's Nabhi, from the lotus shape, and then you get Lord Brahmaji from the Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and also from Garbhodakshai Vishnu you get Kshirodakshay Vishnu into all the elements. And so each soul, each super soul we have is related to, is an ansh of Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Yeah. So if you remember, Karnodakshay Vishnu, then Garbhodakshay Vishnu, then Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Yeah. And Garbhodakshay Vishnu enters into each universe and every atom of matter. Yeah. And those manifestations of cosmic creation are innumerable, both in the universes and in the individual atoms. Yeah. So as we know, ours is not the only universe. And this is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, it says, Athao bahune netena kim gyatena tatva arjun vistabhyam idam krishnam ekam sena stito jagat. What that means is, Shivam?
O Arjuna, there is no necessity of knowing about my innumerable energies, which act in various ways. I enter into the material creation by my partial plenary expansion, Paramatma, or the Supersoul, in all the universes and in all the elements thereof, and thus the work of creation goes on. The wonderful activities of material nature are due to Lord Krishna, and thus he is the final cause, or the ultimate cause of all causes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, very nice purport. Yeah. Rinaji?
So anupravisto Bhagwan's chesta rupenड tam ganam भिन्नम संयुजयमास suptam karma prabodhayan. Thus, when the personality of God had entered into the elements of by his energy, all the living entities were enlivened into different activities, just as one engaged in his work after awakening from sleep. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And it says like, so awakening from sleep, right? Like, so when we are sleeping, of course, we get dreams and all that, but generally we don't know what's going on, right? And we just wake up in the morning, right? After a certain time frame. Similarly, it says when the personality of God had entered into the elements by his energy, says so anu pravishto. Yeah, pravishto. What happened? Living entities were enlivened into different activities. It says karma prabho dayan. And actually, they are very nice purport. So I think some of it we'll read so that, we understand what it really means. So let's start with this, Tarun.
Every individual soul remains unconscious after the dissolution of the creation and thus enters into the Lord with his material energy. These individual living entities are conditioned souls everlastingly, but in each and every material creation, they are given a chance to liberate themselves and become free souls. They're all given a chance to take advantage of the Vedic wisdom and find out what is their relationship with the Supreme Lord, how they can be liberated, and what the ultimate profit is in such liberation. By properly studying the Vedas, one becomes conscious of his position and thus takes to the transcendental devotional service of the Lord and is gradually promoted to the spiritual sky. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. So, I mean, the whole thing is mentioned in those 6 lines, right? If you really see what happens to each individual, which is like each of us, yeah? And if you really imagine, and we remain unconscious after the dissolution of the creation, yeah? So once the annihilation happens of this universe, we remain unconscious, right? As an individual soul. And we stay within the Lord with his material energy, yeah? But irrespective of that, what is most important here is, in each and every material creation, they are given a chance to liberate themselves. So if you remember, 75% of spiritual sky, 25% is the material manifestation, and the spiritual sky remains as is. That's forever. Only the material world is annihilated and created, and we go through this birth, death, disease, and old age. Yeah, we have read that again and again. But in each and every material creation, they are given a chance to liberate themselves and become free souls. Now, and we can take a chance to to get the advantage of Vedic wisdom and get the relationship with the Supreme Lord, right? And it says, like, once we study Vedas or the summary of all the Vedas and Purans, like Srimad Bhagavatam, as we understand, already gaining so much knowledge, we become conscious of our own position. Yeah, we understand who are we to some extent and what is our relationship with the Supreme Lord, and takes to the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, and as such, gradually promoted to the spiritual sky. Yeah, spiritual sky is the Vaikuntha Lok, the other 75%. Let's continue reading this, Shivam.
The individual souls in the material world engage in different activities according to their past unfinished desires. After the dissolution of a particular body, the individual soul forgets everything but the all merciful Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart as the witness. The supersoul awakens him and reminds him of his past desires, and thus he begins to act accordingly in his next life. The unseen guidance is described as fate, and a sensible man can understand that this continues his material bondage in the three modes of nature. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? And say again that when his desires are trained in the transcendental service of the Lord. What does this mean, right? What does this mean? Desires are trained in the transcendental service of the Lord. What it means is all the desires we have, or essentially all the karmas we are doing, if we start doing it in the transcendental service of the Lord, the life becomes perfect, right? Otherwise, our life, if you really think about it, all the things we are doing, really temporary, and we even don't even remember like what all we did, right? And everything has been just so temporary and probably wasted. So, if his desire are trained in the transcendental service of the Lord, the life becomes perfect, and then he is promoted to the spiritual sky to enjoy eternal awakened life. Yeah, Satchidanand life. Very important thing mentioned here, Rinaji.
प्रबुद्ध कर्मा देवेन त्रयोविंशतिको गणः प्रेरितो अजनयत् स्वाभिर्मात्राभिरधि पुरुषम्. When the 23 principal elements were set in action by the will of the Supreme, the gigantic universal form, or the Viswarupa body of the Lord, came into existence. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So again, those 23 elements we saw set in action. Yeah. Trayo Vishanti is the 23. Ko Ganaha. And then we see Abhirodhi Purusham. So Virat Swarup. And actually, if you remember, in Canto 2 also, we read about the Virat Swarup. Let's just read this purport as well, Sachin.
The Virat Roop and Vishwaroop, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, which is very much appreciated by the impersonalist, is not an eternal form of the Lord. It is manifested by the supreme will of the Lord after the ingredients of material creation. Lord Krishna exhibited this Virat or Vishwaroop to Arjuna just to convince the impersonalist that he is the original personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Anilji?
Yeah. Krishna exhibited the Virat Roop. It is not that Krishna was exhibited by the Virat Roop. The Virat Roop is not therefore an eternal form of the Lord exhibited in the spiritual sky. It is a material manifestation of the Lord. The arch Vigraha, or the worshipable deity in the temple, is a similar manifestation of the Lord for the neophytes. But in spite of their material touch, such forms of the Lord as the Virat and Arch are all non-different from his eternal form as Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So few important things mentioned here. One is the Virat Roop is not the first one, right? Virat Roop was exhibited by Lord Shri Krishna after the 20, he entered into 23 elements and so on and so forth, right? So Virat Roop is not the first, because the why it's mentioned is because a lot of people just think Virat Roop is the primary thing, but it's not, right? So that's one thing mentioned. And the Arch Vigraha, the worshipable deity in the temple, right? So that's a deity in the temple, and also there is a Virat Swarup, right? So in spite of their material touch, what it says is such forms are all not different from his eternal form as Lord Shri Krishna. So even if you go to the temple and worship the deities, for us, it's the arch vigraha form, but it's none different than eternal Lord Shri Krishna. Ravi?
पुरेण विश्वता स्वामिन्मात्राय विश्वसृगणः चक्षुमान्यमासाद्य यस्मिन् लोकाश्चराचरः. As the Lord and his planetary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So the Virat Roop, where all the planetary systems, movable and immovable creations rest. Yeah, it says here, Lokashtra Rach Acharaha, right? So both movable and immovable. And actually, again, it's a very nice purport. So a small purports, but I think we'll read those because it's pretty significant information in those here. Shiva?
The elements of cosmic creation are all matter and have no potency to increase in volume unless entered into by the Lord in his plenary portion. This means that matter does not increase or decrease unless it is spiritually touched. Matter is a product of spirit and increases only by the touch of spirit. The entire cosmic manifestation has not assumed its gigantic form by itself, as wrongly calculated by less intelligent persons. As long as spirit is within matter, matter can increase as needed. But without the spirit, matter stops increasing. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? Again, couple of important things, right? The entire cosmic manifestation has not come by itself, right? We know that nothing happens by itself. Yeah. So I think it's just such a thing that everything came on its own, right? Doesn't make sense. Then, as long as the spirit is within matter, matter can increase as needed or change. But if the spirit is not there, matter stops increasing. Yeah. And let's just continue reading this, Rinaji.
For example, as long as there is a spiritual consciousness within the material body of a living entity, the body increases to the required size. But a dead material body, which has no spiritual consciousness, stops increasing. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, importance is given to the spiritual consciousness, not the body. The entire cosmic body increased by the same process that we experience in our small bodies. One should not, however, foolishly think that the individual infinitesimal soul is the cause of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The universal form is called the Virat Roop because the Supreme Lord is within it in his plenary portion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So again, important fact mentioned, like individual, like for us individually, we have an infinitesimal soul, right? Very, very small. I think it's also described soul, right? So, but some people think that like I am the God, right? Like the soul is the supreme soul and the God, which is not the truth because the universal form, the Virat Roop, as we saw, is because of the supreme Lord, and that's the supreme soul. Yeah, Sachin.
हिरण्मयः स पुरुषः सहस्र परिवत्सरान् आण्डकोश उवासाप्सु सर्वसत्त्वो बभ्रुंहितः. The gigantic Virat Purusha, known as Hiranmaya, lived for 1,000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. Hare Krishna.
Right. So in the beginning of the universe, what's going on? So number one is to remember, right? The gigantic Virat Purush, that Virat Swarup. How is it known as Hiranmaya? So remember, like what is Hiranyamaya? Right? That is referred to the Virat Purush Roop. And then in the beginning, 1000 celestial Devi years on the water of the universe. Yeah, and all the living entities lay within him. Again, important purport. Let's just read this, Tarun.
After the Lord entered each and every universe as the Garbhodaksha, Vishnu, half of the universe was filled with water. The cosmic manifestation of the planetary systems, outer space, etc., which are visible to us, is only one half of the complete universe. Before the manifestation takes place and after the entrance of Vishnu within the universe, there is a period of 1000 celestial years. Hare Krishna.
Right, so all quantitative numbers are described here. Yeah, Ravi.
All the living all the living entities injected within the worm of the Mahatattva are divided universe in all the universe with the incarnation of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and all of them lie down with the Lord until Brahma is born. Brahma is the first living being within the universe, and from him all other demigods and living creations are born. Manu is the original father of the mankind, and therefore in Sanskrit, mankind is called Manushya.
So,
Humanity, in different bodily qualities, is distributed throughout the various planetary systems. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so pretty interesting. Yeah, I think it's only 1 minute, so we are going to pause here and we'll continue reading tomorrow. Meanwhile, let's hear the kirtan for a minute and then we'll see you tomorrow. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare